All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And as always, I appreciate you guys showing up when you can. And this is being recorded because a lot of people always want to make these live chats and they just can't do it, which is totally understandable. It's a Saturday, right? I got nothing else to do, but I'm sure everybody else that has families and other responsibilities definitely has other things to do. All right. So this is our latest wink. This is what you need to know. And I like to do these periodically. I think we've done a few of them in the past, and I like to do these periodically just to make sure that we're kind of up to speed on the latest and greatest in the health world. And then also, I want to share what I feel like is the most important information for you guys. I want to share things that could be considered controversial, but I think at this point, most of us are probably on the same page with most things, so they probably aren't very controversial, but it's important. Like we are in existential times. um, it's pretty amazing to consider where we're at right now. We are on the precipice of a turn, and it could go really good and it could go really bad. So I think education is the first step, and the awareness that certain things are happening, and then with that awareness, of course, you can't help but make a decision to prepare yourself for these different things. So it's not all doom and gloom. You just want to be ahead of the curve. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get into this. So I've said this before. Self-reliance contributes to happiness. I used to say that health was the thing that made you happy. And I realized that there's a lot more to happiness than just the health piece. And health is also a part of the self-reliance. But when you're self-reliant, you don't worry about those things much anymore. So I think self-reliance is something that contributes to happiness. Within self-reliance, of course, we have health. What I want for all of you, because I care about you, I genuinely care about you, I want the best for you. What I want for you is to understand what's important with health, what's important with readiness. I want to provide you resources for wealth. Like that's not my area of expertise, but I'm learning more and more as I go down these different rabbit holes. We'll talk a little bit about it today, but this is what I want. I want you to have, basically these three pillars in place, or at least you're working in these three different areas. And that's going to make you happy because it's going to contribute to your self-reliance. So within health, we've got all the foundations that we talk about all the time, real food and sleep and mindfulness and fitness. Within readiness, we've got preparedness, we've got hydration, we've got food, we've got having a plan. And then within wealth, of course, there's savings and investments. So let's start with the health piece of it. And I'm just going to bring us up to speed. I think most of us are probably on this page, but I have these conversations almost every day with clients around what the main focus should be. This is something that we've changed our stance on since, we started doing this. When I say we, me, you, clients, community, right? I've changed my stance on, in the beginning, it was more about, we went through our fasting years, right? And we were master fasters. And in the beginning, it was about space and it was about balance. And I think all of us are on the same page because most of us are in a similar timeline in our lives. So I consider us like second half of our lives, right? And this whole muscle piece is so important. And again, I have this conversation with clients almost every single day because people come to me and they want to lose fat, right? But I think it's more important to focus on the muscle aspect. So let's go through just a little bit of this. You may have heard it before, so it's going to be a good refresher. The more pro tip, the more muscle you have, the better you're going to live. And that is an absolute fact. When you're strong with muscle, you can do things, you're functional, you can move things. It is the largest disposal space for glucose, meaning it's going to help you manage your blood sugar levels better. It's going to help contribute to an optimal body composition. It's going to help contribute to more fat burning because you have this huge space where you can get rid of glucose when you consume it. It's also the source of your metabolism, right? So that is where the majority of your metabolism happens. This is where the majority of your energy creation and usage is happening. And it is a reservoir for nutrients in times of starvation. Heaven forbid we go through some situations where we need to pull resources from our body to help us heal or move through something. Muscle is the best reservoir for the most important nutrients, which are amino acids. Now, modern health is all about looking at the diseased organ state, right? So, and I would even consider fat being an organ, right? So the mainstream narrative is all about losing fat. And I feel like that's focusing on the problem versus the solution. Just like with diabetes, you're focusing on the pancreas and insulin. Or with heart disease, you're focusing on the heart, but maybe there's a different way. Maybe we want to focus on the results that we want and the thing that's going to get us there. So in pro tip, instead of focusing on the diseased organ state, try focusing on the solution, which is building strength and muscle. And by definition, you're going to get the body composition changes that you want. Now, I had a conversation with a client just yesterday, man. This guy hired me and I freaking adore the dude. Like with all my private clients, we develop a really, really strong relationship. And he came to me because he wants that elusive goal of losing fat and building muscle at the same time, which is kind of hard to do. But we started out focusing on the strength piece and building muscle and changing up his workouts and focusing on protein. And he's seeing great results. Like people are noticing, he's feeling a little bit more jacked and muscled and toned. But he's also noticing putting on a little bit more weight or not losing the fat that he wanted to. And so yesterday we had this conversation around, hey, what would you prefer? Like, would you prefer to just lose a bunch of fat at the expense of not gaining the muscle that you gained? Or would you prefer building muscle and then losing fat, right? I would prefer to be big and strong. And then within the context of being big and strong, work on losing my fat and then optimizing that part of it. And I think that's the way that most of us need to think, because here's the deal. In this little bell curve here, the first half of your life, your hormones are in your favor, meaning that it's really easy for you to get away with a lot of different things because you've got your body's basically in growth mode, fertility mode, right? After I'd say about, I don't know, like late 30s, mid 40s, things get really difficult, right? We all notice this. It's harder to put on muscle. It's harder to lose fat. But what I'm saying here is that if we focus on as early as we can strength and building muscle and functionality, it's going to serve us later in life because it's going to be easier to hold on to that stuff. And it's never too late to start, right? So once you build a foundation of muscle, and again, you can start later half of your life if that's where you're coming to this from. It's better than not starting at all. But once you build a certain muscle capacity, then you're going to maintain that as long as you continue to train. And I think most people would be surprised at how much strength and muscle they can put on, even in the second half of their life. But my point here is that when you're younger, you can get away with stuff. When you get to be our age, it's like, we really need to be focused on not starving the body so that we can lose fat, but really strengthening the body through the right resistance training and the right fitness modalities, and then also the right nutrition, which has got to be protein focused, right? So pro tip, it's better to be muscle centric with building muscle as the priority and then losing fat versus losing fat as the main priority at the expense of losing muscle. Okay. Or maybe the more accurate would be at the expense of building muscle. So as a refresher, I have this graph that I pulled from Optimizing Protein Talk. And here we just talk about, the main takeaways from this are that you need a minimum of 100 grams of protein in a day. And per meal, you're looking at 30 grams of protein or more, right, to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. I have some other information in here. It's not very important because if you're hitting these protein marks, you're getting this stuff. But for leucine, we need that 2.5 grams of leucine in a sitting for the body to get this signal of muscle protein synthesis. Your daily protein requirement ideal would be a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. But at a minimum, we're shooting for that 100 grams of protein in a day and then 30 grams of protein per meal. But when you start to do the numbers, you start to see, like for me, if I'm trying to be around 185, to 200 pounds of lean muscle mass, that's my most optimal version of myself, then I'm shooting for about 200 grams of protein in a day. And then that's kind of hard to do. It's hard for me to get 150 grams of protein in a day. But I can tell you that when I focus on that, like I do feel different. I do feel better. I do feel stronger. And within the context of that, then it's easier, I think, to work on the fat loss piece. I've also found the essential amino acids to be absolute game changers. They not only contribute to daily protein intake, but they're great for recovery. They're great for outside of meals. So I usually take a serving after working out. I usually take a serving with my organs when I take my organs on an empty stomach. And then sometimes it's great to have them available in case you skip a meal, because if you take 15 grams of essential amino acids, is equivalent to taking 30 grams of full spectrum protein. So pro tip when balancing eating and fasting, always connect with your personal vision for yourself and health, meaning, you got to think about what is it that I want? What's my priority here? And I think for most of us, I've tried to make this argument here that the priority needs to be, if it's health, And if it's being functional and capable, it's got to be on building muscle and strength and functionality, and then working on the fat loss piece after you're doing all the things that you need to do for the strength and muscle piece. All right, so another really, really big game changer for myself and then for all my clients that I work with has been, I mean, most people come to me, they're looking for specific changes, and most of the time it's improving their health, working with symptoms and conditions, and then a lot of times it's body composition changes, right? And for all of us, we've said this many times before, we come from a background of insulin resistance and having problems managing blood sugar levels. So the better that we can do that, the better that we're going to see the results that we want from our nutrition and everything else. So a game changer. Look, I learned this back in nutritional therapy school, taking apple cider vinegar. I've done it almost every day since. I've tried to teach it a little bit, and then I back off of teaching it, and I've become more of a fan of supplementation. But then I'm sure some of you probably heard of the glucose goddess. You see her on Instagram, and she's got a great YouTube channel. And stand by one second here. Yeah. So she's made it a little bit more mainstream. And so Glucose Goddess, man, she's like freaking all about apple cider vinegar, and she recommends it before meals, before carbs, right? So this is an image pulled from her Instagram feed. 1 tablespoon of vinegar in water before eating, and I actually just shoot the vinegar directly in my mouth. I don't even mix it with water. Curbs your glucose spike by up to 30% and your insulin spike by up to 20%. And that's powerful. It really is. I've noticed a tremendous difference with my digestion in general, but then also my body composition. And I'm convinced that part of it is just doing really good with managing blood sugar levels. I also take the trio that I recommend everyone take to support digestion. I think that most people benefit from this, even if you don't have digestive issues. Because why does apple cider vinegar work so well? Well, there's certain components that are really beneficial to the blood sugar handling piece, helping the muscles kind of want to be in this receptive, uptake of glucose. But then also when you strengthen your digestion, you're getting better at assimilating nutrients and absorbing nutrients and disposing of things that are in excess, which includes glucose. So that's why I'm a huge fan of the digestive support. So, but anyway, if we're focusing on what we need to know, then, the apple cider vinegar is, I was going to say free. It's not free. You got to buy it, but it's relatively very inexpensive and it gets tremendous results. And then if you combine that with some digestive supplementation, I think it's just a 1-2 punch for blood sugar handling issues. On the topic of blood sugar handling as well, I've said this for a really long time, but it's becoming more mainstream now. Movement after meals is really powerful because think about it. Every time you eat, even if you don't have any carbohydrates, you're going to have a blood sugar spike, right? Your body's going to create a little bit of glucose from just about anything that you consume. So the quicker that you can get your blood sugar levels back to an even keel, the quicker you can get back into a fat burning state. And I think the easiest way to do that, in addition to apple cider vinegar, digestive support, is as soon as you're done eating, go for a short walk or a long walk if you want to. And that's been a game changer for myself and for my clients and for everyone that's implemented it. So that's all I have on the blood sugar piece. I do want to cover heart rate zones because this is something I've been working with a bunch of my clients on, and I think it helps contribute to this understanding of like what does it take to get into a fat burning state, right? So again, focusing on the things that give us strength and power and muscle. All right. So this is our fitness foundations pyramid. The bottom of this pyramid, the base is going to be staying active all the time at a low level, changing positions all the time, taking breaks. That is the number one thing that you can do for your health as far as fitness goes. And then in the middle of the pyramid, we've got like resistance training. We need to be training every body part 1 to 2 times per week. And this is where we're going to get our strength and our muscle and our strong bones. And then periodically, once a week, once every 7 to 10 days, you're doing some all out sprints. Now, if you're monitoring your heart rate, then it becomes very clear on how intense you need to be doing these things. Okay. So I have up here aerobic maximum heart rate. So aerobic maximum heart rate is not to be confused with your maximum heart rate. Okay. Aerobic maximum heart rate means what is the max heart rate that you can be at and still be in a dominantly fat burning state? Because aerobic implies the usage of oxygen, which implies you're going to be using a combination of fat and glucose for energy, versus anaerobic, which is without oxygen. Those are the more intense things, right? Or the shorter duration things. So Aerobic maximum heart rate would be 180 minus your age. I think it is the most accurate way to determine what that is. Now, what that means is that when you're working out, unless you're working on sprints, right, unless you're doing something that's all out, you want to be below that 180 minus your age beats per minute for a heart rate. And of course, you have to have a heart rate monitor to figure this out or to monitor it. But the point here is that a lot of people, and including myself for the longest time when I was doing CrossFit, I was just used to always going intense and always pushing the limits and always pushing the boundaries, right? And it's not contributing to the fitness goals that we want, which are basically to build strength and to lose fat. So if we can, during our workouts, monitor our heart rate and keep it at 180 minus your age beats per minute, then we know that we're at this maximum fat burning state. And we're also doing the movements and the things that are contributing to the strength and stuff that we want, right? And then every now and then, periodically, you want to do something that's sprint based. I think the best way to estimate your maximum heart rate is going to be, or your estimated maximum heart rate is going to be 206 minus zero point 0.7 times your age. You can do the math. I did mine. What was mine? I forgot. Pretty simple. Heart rate zones. Here we go. Aerobic maximum heart rate. 132 would be my fat burning heart rate, right? And then 172.4 would be my estimated maximum heart rate. So all that means is that the majority of the time that you're working out, you want to keep below, at or below that 180 minus your age to maximize fat burning. When you're doing sprint based stuff, which is really just all out, 8 to 30 seconds, something like that, that's when it's okay to be bumping around your estimated maximum heart rate. And you'll probably go over your estimated maximum heart rate. I can really get my heart rate jacked up really high when I push myself really hard. So your goal is not to change your aerobic heart rate. It has become faster and more efficient at the same heart rate over time. And this is what we see when we train like this. When I say we, me, us, my clients, community members. So this is a good little graphic pulled from the Primal Health Coach Institute. And so fat max is basically that optimal heart rate where you're tapping into maximum fat stores. And of course, you're always going to have a combination of fat and glucose, but you want dominant fat usage. And that's when you're going to be at a lower heart rate, okay, versus something that you could push really, really hard. So we see here, fat max is going to be that 180 minus age, and the higher your heart rate, the more you're going to start to transition into more of a glucose burning energy substrate. So, so the goal is that within a certain heart rate, your fitness is getting better and better and better, and that's what you're going to notice is that things that used to really, really tax you or jack your heart rate up, you're able to do those things with a lower heart rate, or you're able to do more at the same heart rate, something along those lines, right? So this is something that I've had to wrap my mind around over the past few years because, again, I come from this CrossFitish background where I'm like used to just blowing it out all the time. And now I realize the most healthful way to do fitness is, again, staying active all the time, resistance training as a priority. And then as you're stringing together your movements and you're doing things that you feel like are for conditioning, you just want to stay at 180 minus your age as a heart rate so that you're improving your fitness, but also making sure that you're maximizing your fat burning. And then every now and then you're doing some splints. Okay. All right, cool. As a review for some of the best sleep hacks, remember there's 3 things that we need for sleep to contribute to optimizing sleep and setting circadian rhythms. And that would be consistency with a schedule. And that includes people that can't, that have their schedules flipped and they work shift work. But consistency, you can entrain your body to do things. You can entrain your body to anticipate sleep and wakefulness based on whatever schedule is optimal for you. But ideally, number 2, you're mimicking the day during the day. And then number 3, you're mimicking the night during the night, meaning that during the day, you're getting sun, you're getting natural light into your eyes as early as possible. You're getting cumulative light throughout the day. And then a couple hours before bedtime or when the sun goes down, you're trying to make things dim, dark, and cool. Now, I'm just sharing, since this is a wink episode, like what are the most beneficial things that I've tapped into and that I'm teaching right now, is this whole, I envision having a force field around 2 or 3 hours before bedtime, right? And this is like this pristine time where ideally you don't have anything going on, okay? And that includes eating. So what I try to do now is, and I remember the first time that I tried to eat at 4 o'clock in the afternoon versus like 5 or 6 or something like that. I thought mentally, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do it because I'm so used to eating so late. And the first time I did it, it was just like, it felt so right. It felt so great. And now my goal is 4 p.m., 4:30, like I'm done eating and I've got several hours before I go to bed. I sleep so much better. It just feels better. I have zero appetite in the evening too, because of course I'm making this meal a large amount of protein. So anyway, I think it's useful based on your bedtime to think, all right, 2 or 3 hours before bedtime, this is my little, I need to have a shield around that time. And I need to make that, do my best to finish eating. And then that's also when you can do like a short walk. And this is when you're dimming things and trying to stay off of stimulus and phones and TVs and all that kind of stuff. That's been a huge game changer. The walking after dinner, another one. Like, if I ever have to skip walking after dinner for some reason, or I'm just too tired and I just like want to go and chill out, my sleep is completely different, right? This has been such a huge contributor to better sleep for sure. And then the blue light blocking glasses. If you don't have them, like, you're behind the times. You got to get on them. I love the Viva Rays, and they have these clip and goes that you can exchange, for an evening transition, nighttime transition, and then also the daytime computer glasses. So that's the what you need to know on the sleep piece of it. And then finally, just to touch on the mindfulness, and then we'll get into just a little bit of preparedness stuff. I think the biggest thing with mindfulness is, first of all, if you're trying to structure some personal quiet time, I think the number one priority is just showing up to some space every day without even understanding or knowing what to do or complicating that process. I think a lot of us tend to complicate many things, including myself. And for a lot of us, when we show up to this quiet time, like we're trying to force something that doesn't feel right, right? So I think just showing up, and like this morning, I went and sat on a park bench and I had 20 minutes, and I didn't do formal meditation, although most mornings I do, but I did just sit there and allow myself to just look around and watch and listen. And it was just beautiful. It really was. And I didn't get caught up in thinking it was beautiful. I really tried to be just present and listen and see, but it just felt not forced. Okay. So anyway, my point there is just showing up to quiet time is really useful. Then you want to add some structure. Once you get into the habit of showing up on a regular basis, this is my time that I've carved out. That's when you can start to add some structure to it. And then learn to meditate, after you've gotten comfortable with showing up and having some kind of structure. I think meditation is just absolutely crucial, because with meditation, what we're looking to do is cultivate the skill of noticing our thinking, because our thinking is what gets us in trouble. Our thinking is where all the suffering that we have comes from. You look at animals, they just deal with stress. Stuff happens, and they're not like brooding over it, right? For us, things happen and we add to it with our conversation. So meditation would be cultivating the skill of noticing your thinking. Mindfulness is actually putting that skill into practice. So really, what you want during a quiet time session, and I'm going to bring it back to what it is you need to know, but you're cultivating some presence using a focus. Like this morning, I'm sitting on the park bench and I'm just listening to the wind, listening to the birds, listening to the people over the dog park, feeling the sun on my skin. I'm using present moment experiences and sensations to keep me in the present moment, right? And then I'm going to notice myself talk to myself and get lost in some kind of thought. And as soon as I notice that, first of all, when I notice that, that's cultivating the skill of noticing thinking. But as soon as I notice that, then I deliberately come back and just re-listen or re-engage my senses, whatever I was doing, right? And that cultivates the skill of coming back to the present moment. So it's actually a two-step process. You want to notice your thinking, and then you want to deliberately come back to the present moment using one of your focuses, right? So the three focuses I usually teach are sounds in your environment, listening, focusing on feeling your body or connecting with your inner body. I got that from Eckhart Tolle. Practicing the Power Now is a really, really great book. And then focusing on your breath, right? With the breath, you can follow the breath, feel the breath, notice your breath, whatever makes sense for you. But you got to tinker with all these. And I try to mix these up as I meditate personally, as I teach it. But you'll find something that resonates with you. And then how to meditate or how to practice. I like to call meditation practice, by the way, because it's practice noticing your thinking and it's practice coming back to the present moment. Meditation, I think, sometimes has a little bit of some kind of esoteric or confusing meaning for a lot of people. But anyway, you're just going to sit with calm, assertive posture. I recommend always keeping your eyes open, because you're trying to cultivate presence and practicing for everyday life. And everyday life, you're living, walking around with your eyes open, right? And then you're going to focus on a present moment focus, either listening, feeling, focus on the breath. And then as soon as you notice yourself thinking, it's almost like this attitude of, aha, there I go. But then you're not finished, because you have to reconnect with whatever the focus was before. Every time you do that, you'll notice some space open up, and then the thoughts will come. and then you'll notice the thoughts, and then you'll come back, and then you'll have some space, and it's just you're just going back and forth because it's just like performing repetitions in the gym, right? You're just like you're doing some bicep curls, except these are curls for your mind. So now, as you're going throughout the day, after you've been doing this practice session most mornings, using mindfulness is the same process, right? So as I'm going throughout my day, I need to notice my thinking as much as possible. Even if it's not negative thinking, the more that I can be present and notice myself thinking, the more that I can change the trajectory or maybe confirm, that I'm thinking about the right things or the things that I want to. But I think you can't notice too much, right? Because it's just powerful. You can confirm you're doing the right thing or thinking the right thing or working on the right thing, or you can change course. So you notice you're thinking, you come back to the present moment, and then you focus on what it is that you want and what it is that you can do. That's how you use it in everyday life, right? Now, this was what I wanted to cover today. Sorry, it took a little while to get there. Noticing what we do to ourselves and others. There was this story at the beginning of a book, and I can't remember which book it was that I recently read that had this. But the author was just making this illustration about how, like some of us, when I was in Vegas, I used to love hanging out at the pool and getting sun. And I love the sun in general. Utah has just been horrific for me. Like I just don't like the cold. I don't like the gloominess and cloud, whatever. I love the sun, right? But there would be a point at which I wouldn't love the sun if I was out in the freaking desert for 10 days, right? And I had no shade or no shelter, right? The sun would be the same sun that I adore on some days would be something that I absolutely abhor on other days, right? So it's a perspective thing, right? I feel like, and this is a conversation I've had with a lot of clients, and just take from this what resonates with you, because I'm not saying that doing deep work is a bad thing. I'm just saying that if we're always focusing on these things, trying to improve ourselves, and you'll get my point here in a second, right? So the trying so hard not to be whatever it is that you're trying so hard at sometimes contributes to the thing that you're actually trying to avoid, because the focus is this thing. Okay. Another way to put it is always trying to work with your anxiety can sometimes contribute to your anxiety because you identify with it. You give it a lot of strength and power versus just focusing on the things that you need to do to be healthy and happy. And yet another way to look at it is always working on your problems may be part of your problems. And I definitely went through this phase in my life where I was just always about the work, right? Always about these things, right? And then I got to some point, and it was several years ago, where I was just like, you know what? Like, I don't know. I'm just going to enjoy life more. I'm going to focus on the things that make me healthy and happy and not get so caught up on focusing on these things that I feel like need to be improved. I'm not saying that I don't improve myself. Of course I do. I think it's just the way that you approach it, right? So there may be such a thing as doing too much deep work, because if you're always doing the deep work, you're not living your life, right? You got to live your life. And I'm not saying don't do the work. And I'm not saying don't work on your problems. But I think you understand what I'm saying. There has to be some kind of a balance. And I think, this kind of deep work has to be punctuated so that the majority of your life and day is spent living your life, right? This is a quote from St. Paul's epistle to the Romans: "For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep doing." And I think this is kind of illustrating what I'm saying here about focusing on the wrong things. So that's my wink for mindfulness. And then finally, I just want to get into some readiness stuff. Okay. First of all, on finances, this is my dispersion method. I'm not a finance expert, all right, and I'm not necessarily saying take advice from me, but maybe I am. I don't know. What's useful for me, especially since I'm commission based, is every time I make money, then I disperse it where it needs to go. And part of that, the most important thing to me right now, is that I don't care how much is coming in or how little is coming in. And I don't care what my bills and things are. I'm always going to pay myself. I'm always going to save a little bit, because I think now it's more important than ever. I really wish I would have done this for the majority of my life, because I would have so much more money. But I think that paying myself is the most important takeaway from this dispersion thing. So my point here is that if you're not already doing this, you need to get into the habit of, when money comes in, then you need to pay yourself and save something, and with the intention of not ever using that ever again, or, well, I don't know, sometime down the road. Okay. So podcasts, I'm going to make sure that I provide the links and resources for it. This is, first of all, one of my favorite podcasts of all time is the What is Money Show. I'm getting the guy on a live chat with us, by the way. amazing. Like, he's a Bitcoin maximalist, and he's just awesome. So anyway, this episode here, What is My Show 279, with Jack Spirko, was just awesome because he talked all about preparedness. And then they finished with touching on Bitcoin and how Bitcoin fits into the preparedness thing. And I thought it was just such a good episode. You'll hear so many great things, so many confirmations of things that we've already discussed and talked about. And then well, first of all, I want to bounce over here to the community and just show you guys. Where is it? So we have what do we call it over here? Self-reliance and preparedness space where all these posts are housed. Some of them are in the recorded live calls because they were live calls, but I'm moving them over to the self-reliance and preparedness. If you haven't gone through these are so solid. And my stance has not changed that much on them because I've done several talks with other companies on preparedness. So we've got preparedness one, and that's just basically it's the first version of preparedness, right? Preparedness two was all about bags and bug out bags, and I've got a couple of different videos on that. And again, I stand behind it still. It's super super solid information. So if you haven't gone through that, please make sure that you do. Getting back to what we're talking about here. Um, Another great podcast I'm going to share with you guys is the Healthy Rebellion Radio with Rob Wolf. He's a guy I've followed since the very beginning. I absolutely adore him. He's emailed me a couple of times, starstruck with it, but he has a recent episode called The Freedom to Transact. And they're talking about like the central digital bank currencies and how that's rolling out. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be unstoppable. Um, but sorry, Renee. So anyway, it was just a really, really great episode, helping to illustrate the importance of these times that we're in and things that we can do to maybe protect ourselves, or at least start thinking about things that we can do to uh, I guess combat like the digital currency and all the problems that are associated with it. So I think it's a crucial, crucial episode. And then a couple books. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin. I really am. And I'll post sometimes on my Instagram, and I have to say, like, my account did not get hacked. Okay. And I don't know where you're at on Bitcoin, but if you haven't read the Bitcoin Standard, you got to read the Bitcoin Standard because it is the first part of it's just a review of the financial history of the world. It's really, really educational, and then goes into a little bit of Bitcoin. Doesn't even really push it that much, but I think Bitcoin is just it is one of the keys to the solution to us improving as a species and surviving on this planet versus not, because every problem that we have today, I feel like, can be traced back to the manipulation of money and fiat currency. Because you think about it, like, why do we have so many problems? Why do we have so much poor health advice, and why do we have mandates and restrictions and all the different things that have happened over the past few years? And it's money. It's all money driven, right? And so having some sound money, Bitcoin being probably the best invention ever when it comes to finances. Having some sound money like Bitcoin that's ultra transportable, it weighs nothing. You can hold on to it yourself, and no one can access it. Like, it is one of the keys to the solutions moving forward for sure. And then Chris Martenson just came out with a new crash course book. He has a free online crash course video series. I just ordered this. I haven't read it yet, but so if you have any questions about Bitcoin, let me know, because I'm not an expert, but I've had to become a self-made personal expert for myself. And now I'm in the habit of purchasing Bitcoin and then self-custodying it, which means that usually when you buy Bitcoin, it's housed on some kind of an exchange, right? Most people buy their Bitcoin from Coinbase. But the problem is that if Coinbase, for whatever reason, goes down, like, your money's with them, right? So self-custody means that you buy Bitcoin through some exchange. You have to buy it somewhere, right? And then you learn how to transfer that Bitcoin to a hard wallet, or you can use a digital wallet on your phone. Some people think that's not as secure as a hard wallet. Hard wallet basically is plug it into your computer, Bitcoin transfers onto the wallet, and then it's on your wallet. So if you have any questions about that or that process, just let me know, and I'd be happy to kind of walk you through, because I've had to learn it myself. And I use Swan Bitcoin because it has the lowest rates or fees, and they are nothing but Bitcoin. They don't offer any of the shit coins, any of the things that a lot of people use as speculation to try to invest and make some money on. They're Bitcoin only, their customer service is awesome, and they always highly encourage you self-custody. They don't want to keep it on their exchange. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. I think Bitcoin is is a huge part of the solution. Okay. If you go to swanbitcoin.com/Paul C. Tijerina, that is my Swan webpage, and I get like a $10 referral credit. You get $10 if you do it. So it's a win-win. When you sign up with them, you get the same link that you can share with other people too. So, all right. Now, finally, I want to cover what I consider to be the most important people and things to be following. Now, part of my responsibility is to be sharing with you the latest and greatest from all these different sources. So you don't have to listen to every episode of these people I'm going to share right now, or you don't have to watch every video. You don't have to read every post or blog post, because my goal is to bring you what I feel like is the most important, but I'm going to also encourage you to follow these people. All right. So the sources that we can get this information that don't seem to be captured as much as other entities would be Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Odyssey is a YouTube alternative, and Rumble is a YouTube alternative. And so creators have their stuff on different platforms. All right, so you've heard from me before, but maybe if you're watching this after the fact, Brett Weinstein's Dark Horse podcast, absolutely crucial foundational information. Right, I think I love their thinking. It's very kind of science and true science and evolutionary based, and I just think it's top notch. It really is. I'm not saying that I 100% agree with everything that he puts out, but I just think their critical thinking and their thinking skills are just absolutely crucial. It's just, and of course they have a book. A lot of us have read it. But so Dark Horse is on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch the video version of it on Odyssey. I would not do it on YouTube. Peak Prosperity, another crucial one. This is Chris Martenson, the guy that does the crash course. So he is also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. He's on both Odyssey and Rumble. I notice I listen majority to these things, but I do notice that as he does his videos, he has a lot of graphics that are very, very interesting and support what it is he's saying. So when you have the ability, sometimes you can actually watch the video. Now, absolutely love this podcast, What is Money, with Robert Breedlove, and he's going to be a guest on our live calls at some point, hopefully this year. Absolutely love this podcast. Like, it is freaking just amazing. Well, he does have a Rumble. I don't know if he actually has videos in there or not, but so he's on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and I'm just telling you, like, just some amazing episodes here, and really the show is all about like figuring out what is money and what is the solution to money going forward. Sounds like a very narrow topic, but he ends up bringing in a lot of health experts, a lot of people from a lot of different fields. And one thing that I found extremely fascinating is once you get into the Bitcoin world, because Bitcoin represents so much of what we are looking for with health and food and nutrition and fitness, right? It's like this common sense evolutionary approach to things, critical thinking, things that make sense, not following the mainstream narrative. So once you get into the Bitcoin world, like, you start to see like a lot of Bitcoiners are just like us. They embrace animal foods. A lot of them are carnivore. Obviously we're not carnivore, but we tend to share a lot in common with the Bitcoiners. So like my point is that this show is just, I think it's excellent because he just brings in some amazing guests. So now Dr. Mercola, like it's rare that he ever puts anything out that I don't agree with, and he has the balls to like cover controversial things. Okay. I think the best place to find his stuff is subscribe to his newsletter. Okay. If you go to his website, Mercola.com, I'll share this info. Subscribe to his newsletter, and you'll get like these email updates most days. You can kind of scroll through it and see if there's anything interesting in it. And then he has a Substack. Okay. Substack is just, it's a website. It's like a Patreon based thing where you can pay to subscribe, but he has all of his censored material in that Substack. I don't think I pay anything for it, to be honest. I think I just subscribe to it, but he does have videos on Rumble. So Russell Brand. Okay. I don't know how many of you follow Russell Brand, but Russell Brand, he's I want to say awake, but like I don't want that to be confused with woke. Okay. But he's awesome. Same thing. He has the guts to put things out that are very, very controversial. And I think he's extremely inspiring, right? Somewhat controversial, but and then there's a podcast that is like usually 6, 7, 8, 9 hours long every week, and it's called Grand Theft World. Now, I love it. I think it's great. I just want to offer some caution because Grand Theft World can be at the extreme end of controversial, conspiracy based type stuff. But it's where I get a lot of my understandings of what's happening in the world, and if you can get past some of the crassness of some of the guests that are on there sometimes, like it's one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to it every week. So what I wanted to do is take these, what I consider to be crucial podcasts to follow, and I put them on the spectrum of, sounds crazy to like crucial and essential. Okay. So at the left end of the spectrum, the crucial and essential, I would say, is Brett Weinstein's Dark Horse podcast, What Does Money Show, Peak Prosperity, and Mercola. And then you've got a little bit more controversial, a little bit more conspiracy based. We've got things like Russell Brand, and then Grand Theft World is way out there. But again, I think it's I think it's great information. I really do. So all right, and I think that's everything that I got for the wink, and that's good because it took us to about 45 minutes there. And I just want to say your contribution matters. I appreciate being a part of this journey with me. I got some exciting news about some things that we're working on coming up in the future. I got some great guests coming for our live talks. I've got a mission that I'm putting together, which is going to be really exciting. I can't wait to share it with you guys, but I got to wait until we've got it solidified. But your contribution matters, just being a part of this thing, consuming this information, putting it into practice, being the example that you are, it really does mean a lot. Okay. So as always, questions, comments, feedback, snide remarks, you can send it my way. Keep it real.